The final battle took place in the heart of Devourer space, where warlord Keth-Ra had built his ultimate fortress. The massive world called Grim Eternal was larger than most gas giants covered in weapons that could destroy entire star systems. His remaining fleet of 1,000 ships surrounded the planet like angry metal moons. Keth-Ra stood in his command chamber looking out at the approaching human vessel. It still looked small compared to his mighty weapons, but he had learned not to judge by size. The reports from his fleeing captains had taught him that this ship defied everything he thought he knew about warfare. The human ship appeared in his sky like a dark star, blotting out the light of the system's 3 black suns Da'un felt. The ship's power reaching levels that made space itself tremble around them. The vessel had grown beyond anything Dr. Yena had imagined becoming, something that existed more in the realm of will and determination than metal and energy. This ends now. Keth-Ra broadcast across all frequencies. I am warlord of the Devourers, conqueror of 17 star systems. I will not be defeated by one primitive ship from a species of janitors and servants. You may have surprised my advanced fleets, but here, you face my ultimate power. Dayun listened to his threats and felt something unexpected. Pity. The Devourer leader had spent his entire existence believing that might made right. He had conquered worlds because he thought it made him strong. He had never learned what humanity knew instinctively, that true strength came from protecting others, not destroying them. The battle began with Keth-Ra unleashing everything he had, weapons that could crack moons fired simultaneously. Planet-killing beams reached out to vaporize the human ship. Gravity weapons tried to crush it into a black hole. Reality warping devices attempted to erase it from existence entirely, but the ship absorbed every attack, turning the incredible destructive force into more power for itself. The vessel had become something beyond physics, powered by the collective determination of every human who had ever refused to surrender. Each weapon that struck it only made it stronger. Keth-Ra's scientists watched their instruments in horror as their ultimate weapons failed completely. Sir, the human ship is not being damaged by our attacks. It is using our own power to grow stronger. Our reality warpers are making it more real. Our gravity crushers are giving it more mass. The fortress world itself began to change as the ship's influence spread. The massive guns that had terrorized entire sectors started producing flowers instead of death rays. The armor plating that could survive supernovas began growing gardens. The torture chambers in the lower levels transformed into schools and hospitals. Dayun felt the ship responding to her emotions as she thought about all the innocent lives Keth-Ra had destroyed. Instead of anger, she felt sadness for a being so twisted by power that he could not see any other way to live. The ship began to do something it had never done before. It began to heal rather than fight. The transformation spread across the fortress world as the ship's power touched everything. Devourer. Soldiers found their weapons turning into tools for building and planting. Former slave quarters became comfortable homes with gardens and playgrounds. The atmosphere itself changed, becoming sweet and breathable. Keth-Ra screamed orders at his panicking forces, but his commands were ignored. His own troops were laying down their arms and beginning to plant flowers where weapons platforms used to stand. The ship was not destroying his empire. It was transforming it into something better. In space, the remaining Devourer fleet underwent the same change. Warships designed to spread terror across the galaxy became vessels of mercy and healing. Their crews forgot their training in destruction and began planning how to help rebuild the worlds they had damaged. The transformation was complete and irreversible. Da'un landed her impossible ship on the fortress world and walked out to meet Keth-Ra face to face. The Devourer warlord was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with armor that had survived 1,000 battles, but when she looked into his eyes, she saw not a monster, but a broken being who had never learned any way to live except through violence. You have destroyed everything I built, Kethra said, but his voice lacked the rage she expected. Instead, he sounded lost, confused, like a child who had been playing a game wrong his whole life. Nodaun replied gently, I have not destroyed anything. I have healed it. Your worlds are more beautiful now than they ever were. Your people are happier. Your former enemies are becoming your friends. This is what life can be when you stop trying to conquer it. The great warlord who had terrorized 17 star systems fell to his knees as understanding finally dawned. I thought strength meant taking. What I wanted, I thought power meant making others fear me. I was wrong about everything was, I not da Yun helped him stand up. Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. You can spend the rest of your life making up for the harm you caused. Your people will help you. The ship has shown them a better way to live. News of Kethra's surrender spread across the galaxy faster than light. The greatest threat the universe had ever known was finished. Not. The news reached every corner of the galaxy within hours, creating panic in government halls and fear in military headquarters. Species that had ruled star systems for thousands of years now trembled at reports of what humanity had accomplished. The Vortani Empire, which controlled 300 worlds, called emergency sessions to discuss the human threat. High Commander Velra of the Vortani read battle reports that made his blue skin turn pale. One human ship had not just defeated the Devourers, but was actively hunting down survivors across half the galaxy. Every fleeing enemy vessel was being destroyed or transformed into something harmless. The implications terrified him. On the crystal world of Nexus Prime, the diamond beings held council in their great hall of singing stones. The harmonics they produced showed fear, uncertainty, and confusion. Their leader, Nex Prime, spoke in tones that cracked like breaking glass. We must consider the possibility that we have misjudged this species completely. The Kalari Hive Queens gathered in their underground chambers, clicking their mandibles in distress. Queen Mother Hisra, who had mocked human military might, just days ago now studied reports that defied understanding. How can one ship exist in multiple locations simultaneously? How can they bring dead worlds back to life? Emergency communication channels buzzed with desperate messages as every major power tried to understand what they were facing. The humans they had treated as servants for 30 years possessed technology that made their greatest achievements look primitive. The balance of galactic power had shifted overnight. Captain Deho received urgent messages from across human space as reports flooded. In Colony 12, which had been destroyed 3 days ago, was now transmitting again. The colonists spoke of waking up in rebuilt cities with no memory of dying. New Sol reported similar resurrections, thousands of people restored to life. Dr. Ye-Na monitored her creation from the lunar laboratory, watching readings that exceeded every theoretical possibility. The ship was not just using human determination as fuel, it had somehow become a living extension of humanity's collective willpower. Levels continued climbing toward ranges that should have torn space itself apart. Meanwhile, Dae-Yun continued her relentless pursuit of the remaining Devourer forces. The ship responded to her desire for justice by growing ever more powerful. Every act of cruelty the Devourers had committed, every innocent life they had taken, fed the vessel's rage. The hunt would continue until every last enemy was found. The fleeing Devourer fleet tried desperately to escape, but found no refuge anywhere they went. The human ship could somehow sense their location across vast distances and arrive instantly to deliver punishment. Captain Morek of the battleship Painbringer sent a terrified message to his commander, Lord Kethra. The human ship found us. Again, even in the Void Nebula, where sensors cannot work. It appeared directly above us and turned our weapons into art sculptures before we could fire a shot. My crew is alive, but they are all painting flowers on the hull. They say they cannot stop themselves. Warlord Kethra himself had taken refuge in the fortress system of Drakmor, surrounding himself with the last remnants of his once mighty fleet. Massive space stations, armed with planet-killing weapons, formed defensive rings around his command ship. But even he knew it would not matter. The human vessel had already proven that conventional defenses meant nothing. Reports came in from across Devourer space as the impossible hunt continued. The prison world where they kept slaves was now a peaceful garden planet where former captives lived in harmony with their environment. The weapons factories that had produced planet crackers now made medical supplies and farming equipment. The transformation was not just physical, but spiritual. Da-Yun could feel the ship changing, the very nature of the places they visited. Violence became impossible in areas touched by the vessel's power. Hatred turned to understanding, cruelty became compassion. The ship was not just defeating evil, it was replacing it with something better. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Park Soo-jin found herself in a very different situation than just days ago. The same alien leaders who had dismissed her requests now begged for audiences. Trade Minister Vel Ok of the Vortani offered massive concessions just for a chance to speak. We are prepared to offer humanity full voting rights on all council matters. Vel Ok said, his voice shaking. Plus exclusive trading agreements, technology, transfers, anything you want. Just please tell us your intentions. Are we safe, Park? Looked at the blue-skinned alien who had laughed at human ships and felt a moment of satisfaction. But her response was measured. We are not conquerors like the Devourers. We protect innocent life. If you have nothing to hide from us, you have nothing to fear. The Kelari Queen. Hisik appeared on the communication screen, her compound eyes reflecting terror and confusion. Human Ambassador, we have detected your impossible ship approaching Kelari space. Should we evacuate our worlds? Are you coming to punish us for our past treatment of your people? The question hung in the air as species across the galaxy wondered the same thing. Humanity now possessed power that could rewrite the laws of physics. Would they use it for revenge? Would the galaxy's former servants become its new masters? The uncertainty was driving entire civilizations to panic on. The military world of Torva, the Vortani High Command, debated whether to prepare for war or surrender. High Admiral Torun studied tactical reports that made no sense. Their computer simulations all ended the same way, complete defeat within minutes, regardless of how many ships they used. We could mobilize our entire fleet, Torun said to his staff. All 5,000 warships plus orbital defense platforms and stellar fortifications. It would not matter. The human ship exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously and turns our own weapons against us. We would be fighting reality itself. Similar discussions took place on every major world as governments struggled with the new reality. The species that had dismissed humans as primitive now faced the possibility that they were the primitive ones. Their understanding of physics, their mastery of technology, their military might all seem like children's toys compared to what humanity had revealed. Dr. Yenna received communication requests from thousands of alien scientists, all begging for information about how the ship worked. Universities across the galaxy offered her tenure positions. Resource-rich worlds promised unlimited funding for her research. Everyone wanted to understand the impossible technology, but Yena's response was always the same. The ship works on principles you do not understand, because you have never learned the true power of refusing to give up. You see human emotion as weakness when it is actually our greatest strength. Until you understand that you will never understand the ship. The transformations spreading through former Devourer space accelerated as Da Yun's vessel visited more systems. Dead worlds bloomed with life again, refugee camps became thriving cities, weapons of mass destruction turned into tools for building and healing. The ship was rewriting the history of an entire region of space reports, reached the Galactic Council of Devourer worlds that had become paradise planets where former enemies now worked together in harmony. The ship was not just defeating evil, it was healing the damage evil had done. The implications staggered every government that heard the news emergency sessions convened on every major world as leaders tried to decide how to respond. Some called for immediate surrender, hoping humanity would be merciful. Others suggested trying to flee to distant galaxies. A few brave souls proposed actually asking humans what they wanted instead of assuming the worst. But the most frightening reports came from the edges of known space, where the last Devourer strongholds waited. The human ship was approaching the heart of their empire, where Warlord Kethra prepared for what would surely be the final battle. The galaxy held its breath waiting to see what would happen. When unstoppable force met immovable object, in her cockpit, Da-Un felt the weight of billions of watching eyes as her ship approached the final confrontation. The entire galaxy was learning what humanity had always known, that true strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the determination to protect others, no matter the cost. The universe was about to witness the end of the greatest threat it had ever known, defeated not by superior firepower, but by something far more powerful, the human refusal to let evil triumph over good. News of the impossible battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every alien race that had dismissed humanity as weak children now watched their sensors report readings that made no sense. The Vortani, who had laughed at human ships, found their best computers calculating scenarios marked as impossible. Ambassador Park. Su Jin sat in her empty office on the Galactic Council station. The same aliens who had abandoned humanity hours ago now flooded her communication channels with desperate messages. The Kalari bug creatures who had mocked human weapons sent frantic requests for information about the Battle High Counselor Zareth of the Crystal Nexari appeared on her screen, his diamond face reflecting light in patterns that showed extreme agitation. Ambassador Park, we are receiving reports that cannot be accurate. Our sensors show a single human vessel has defeated the entire Devourer fleet. This must be some kind of mistake. Park looked at the arrogant Crystal, being who had called humans barely intelligent just yesterday. No mistake, Counselor. Your sensors are working perfectly. You are seeing exactly what you refuse to believe humans were capable of. The Vortani Trade Minister Vel Oke contacted her next, his blue skin pale with fear. The reports say your ship exists in multiple places at once and uses weapons that defy physics. How is this possible? What technology do humans possess that we do not know about? Park smiled coldly. You had 30 years to ask that question, Minister? Too bad you were too busy laughing at us to listen. Now, if you will excuse me, I have real allies to contact. Across the galaxy, every species that had ever dismissed humanity now faced the terrifying realization that they had been completely wrong. The quiet, polite humans who cleaned their stations and fixed their machines possessed power beyond their comprehension. The question was no longer whether humans could survive, but whether anyone else could survive. Humanity unleashed. Meanwhile, Da-Un pushed her impossible ship harder as she hunted the fleeing Devourer fleet through space. The vessel responded to her anger, becoming not just a weapon of defense, but an instrument of righteous fury. Every human colony that had been destroyed, every innocent life that had been taken demanded justice. The ship could now exist in dozens of places, simultaneously striking the enemy fleet from all directions at once. Warlord Kethra's mighty armada, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, was being systematically hunted through space by humanity's creation. The Devourers, who had never retreated from any battle, found themselves running in terror. Captain Lee. Daeho coordinated with the few remaining human ships as they followed Da-un's vessel deeper into enemy space. What they found there defied all understanding. The ship was not just destroying Devourer vessels, it was somehow undoing the damage they had caused. Dead worlds were coming back, to life through pure force of human will. Dr. Yenna watched from her moon laboratory as her creation exceeded every theoretical limit. The ship had become something beyond technology. It was humanity's refusal to accept injustice made manifest in steel and energy. The readings showed it was somehow reaching backward through time-repairing worlds that had been destroyed. On the dead world of Kelmax 7, where the Devourers had killed 8 billion people just weeks ago, something impossible began to happen. The cracked surface started to heal itself. Mountains rose from glass plains, oceans filled valleys that had been burned empty cities, rebuilt themselves stone by stone as if time was running backward. The ship's AI spoke to Da-un as they watched dead worlds return to life. Pilot, we are not just using human determination as power. We have become the living embodiment of humanity's greatest strength, the refusal to let evil win. We can undo what was done, restore what was lost. Da-un felt tears of joy streaming down her face as she watched families appear in the restored cities, walking and talking as if they had never died. The ship was not just defeating the Devourers, it was erasing their crimes against innocent life. This was beyond victory, it was resurrection. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council convened as every species tried to understand what was happening. Their best scientists could not explain how the human ship worked. Their most advanced computers could not predict its capabilities. The only thing they knew for certain was that they had gravely underestimated the species from the small blue world, the Kalari Queen. Hisik called an emergency meeting of all council members, her multiple eyes moving in different directions as she spoke. We must discuss the human situation immediately. They possess technology that makes our greatest achievements look like cave paintings. What do we do if they decide we are enemies? High Admiral Torun of the Vortani military paced nervously in his war room, studying reports that made no sense. Our entire fleet could not defeat the Devourers, but one human ship destroyed them completely and brought their victims back to life. How is this possible? What other impossible weapons do humans have? The crystal being, council leader. Nex Ara spoke in harmonics that showed deep concern. We have analyzed the battle data and found something terrifying. The human ship does not follow our understanding of physics. It seems to rewrite reality through sheer willpower. What does this mean for the rest of the galaxy? Meanwhile, the hunt continued across Devourer space. Da-un's ship appeared wherever fleeing enemy vessels tried to hide. It could somehow sense their location across vast distances and arrive instantly to deliver justice. The few survivors among Kethra's forces spoke in terrified whispers of the human ship that could be everywhere at once. The Devourer fortress world of Grimtor, which had served as a supply base for their conquests, found itself under attack by something that should not exist. The human ship appeared in their sky like a dark star blotting out the light of 3 suns. Its weapons turned their planetary defenses into flower gardens. General Vaktor of the Devourer ground forces sent a desperate message to his fleeing fleet. The human ship is not destroying our weapons. It is transforming them. Our planet crackers have become terraforming devices. Our poison. Gas factories now produce breathable air. This is not warfare. This is magic back on Earth. Commander Kim Hai-wan received reports from across the galaxy that seemed like fairy tales. Human trading posts that had been destroyed were rebuilding themselves. Colonies that had gone silent were back online with their populations alive and well. The impossible ship was somehow undoing years of devourer destruction. The galactic communication networks buzzed with confused and frightened messages as every species tried to understand the new reality, humanity. The weakest member of the council had not just saved themselves, they had saved everyone. The question now was what they would do with their incredible power park. Su Jin found herself inundated with requests from the same council members who had abandoned humanity. She listened to their pleas for forgiveness, their offers of technology, their desperate attempts to get back into human good graces. But her response was always the same: you had your chance to help when we needed it. Most of you chose to run and hide. Now we will handle galactic security ourselves. We clearly cannot trust anyone else to do the job. The universe was learning a hard lesson about judging others by appearance. Humanity had seemed weak because they chose cooperation over conquest. They had appeared primitive because they valued life over power. But when pushed too far, when innocent people were threatened, they became something that could break the laws of physics through sheer determination. In her cockpit, Da-Un felt the ship's power growing beyond all measurement. It was no longer just her flying the vessel. She could feel every human who had ever lived lending their strength to the fight. The ship had become the physical manifestation of humanity's greatest truth, that hope and determination could overcome any obstacle. The galaxy would never be the same again. The species that had been dismissed as galactic janitors had revealed themselves as its true guardians. Whether the other races liked it or not, humanity was now in charge of keeping the peace, and they would do it their way with justice and compassion, backed by power that could rewrite reality itself. The first Devourer weapons fired across space like angry gods, throwing lightning. Massive beams of energy reached out to destroy the human fleet. Commander Minho's ships tried to dodge, but the enemy guns were too powerful and too many human vessels exploded in brilliant flashes of light, turning brave crews into stardust in seconds. Da-Yun watched her friends die around her. Each explosion made her heart ache, but also made her angry. The ship felt her emotions and responded by growing stronger. The AI spoke softly in her ear. "Do not mourn them yet, pilot. Their sacrifice is feeding our power. Every life lost makes us more determined to win." The human fleet fought with everything they had. Captains rammed their burning ships into devourer hulls, knowing they could not win, but refusing to surrender. Without a fight, gunners fired until their weapons melted from overuse. Engineers kept engines running even as their ships fell apart around them, but they were like insects attacking a forest. Fire. The Devourer fleet had weapons designed to kill planets. Their smallest guns could vaporize human battleships in single shots. Their shields turned human missiles into harmless sparks. One by one, Earth's defenders died buying precious time for something they did not understand: Warlord. Kethra watched the slaughter with satisfaction. These humans died bravely, but death was still death. In a few minutes, the last human ship would be destroyed, and he could begin burning their worlds. But his sensors kept showing impossible readings from that one strange vessel. The ship piloted by Da-Yun was doing something that broke every law of physics the Devourers understood. As human ships exploded around it, the vessel seemed to absorb energy from their destruction. Each death made it stronger rather than weaker. The readings showed power levels that should have been impossible for such a small craft. Da-Yun felt tears streaming down her face as she watched the last escort ship explode. She was now alone against thousands of planet killers, but instead of fear, she felt something else rising in her chest. The cold anger that came when bullies picked on people who could not fight back. She spoke to the ship's AI with a voice filled with humanity's ancient defiance. "They think we are weak because we have not conquered galaxies. They do not understand that our strength comes from protecting what we love, not destroying what we fear. Show them what humans can do when pushed too far." The ship responded by doing something that made Warlord Kethra's scientists panic in confusion. It began to multiply, not creating copies but somehow existing in multiple places at the same time. One ship became 10, then 50, then 100. Each one was completely real and carried the full power of human determination. The laws of physics said this was impossible, but the ship was powered by something stronger than physics. It ran on human stubbornness, the same force that had carried cave dwellers through ice ages and pushed explorers across impossible oceans. If humans could survive their own planet trying to kill them, they could certainly break a few scientific laws. Kethra stared at his screens in disbelief. His fleet suddenly faced not one primitive vessel, but a growing armada of ships that should not exist. His weapons fired, destroying hundreds of the human ships, only to watch them reappear instantly. The vessel was not just defying physics, it was rewriting the rules, through pure willpower. The Devourer fleet, which had never faced serious resistance, found themselves fighting an enemy that grew stronger with every attack. Their planet-killing weapons struck the human ships repeatedly, but each impact only seemed to fuel more power. Each destroyed copy regenerated immediately like a bad dream that would not end. Dae-yun felt the power flowing through her as the ship synchronized with her thoughts. Every human who had ever lived seemed to be standing beside her in the cockpit. The determination of her ancestors who had survived plagues and wars and disasters flowed through the ship's systems like electricity. The AI explained what was happening. "Pilot, we are no longer just a machine. We have become humanity's collective will made real in metal and energy. Every story of human survival, every act of courage, every refusal to give up is now part of our power. The more impossible the odds become, the stronger we grow." The Devourer scientists tried desperately to understand what they were facing. Their computers calculated probability scenarios that came back marked as impossible. Their best theories about physics crumbled as they watched the human ship do things that should not exist. But the true terror came when they realized the ship was learning. Every weapon they fired, every tactic they used, every strategy they tried was being absorbed and understood. The human vessel began to predict their movements, counter their attacks before they were made, and turn their own devastating firepower back on them. Young Devourer Captain Vexal watched in horror as his mighty battleship was cut in half by its own weapons, redirected by the impossible human craft. His final message before his ship exploded was filled with panic and disbelief. "Command, the human ship is using our own guns against us. It knows what we are going to do before we do it." Warlord Kethra, who had never known defeat, watched his fleet being systematically torn apart by a single vessel that should not exist. His planet killers, which had cracked worlds, were being turned into scrap metal by beams of pure human determination. His shields, which had survived the fury of dying stars, crumbled before attacks powered by humanity's refusal to surrender. The battle that should have lasted minutes stretched into hours as more and more Devourer ships fell. The human vessel seemed to be everywhere at once, striking from impossible angles with weapons that defied understanding. It was not just winning, it was dominating completely. Reports flooded in from across the Devourer fleet ships were being destroyed faster than they could count. The flagship, Eternal Hunger, was cut in half by its own main gun. The planet killer world. Ender was somehow turned inside out by weapons that rewrote the laws of space. The massive carrier Death Swarm was reduced to floating debris by beams that should not exist. Dae-yun felt the ship's power growing beyond anything Dr. Ye-na had imagined. The vessel was no longer just using human determination as fuel. It had become determination itself made solid. It was the living embodiment of every time humans had looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. The few surviving Devourer ships began to retreat. something they had never done in their entire history of conquest. Warlord Kethra screamed orders at his fleeing captains, but for the first time in his life, his subordinates ignored him. They had seen their invincible fleet, destroyed by something that should not exist, and terror had replaced their confidence. As the enemy fled, Da'un felt a moment of satisfaction, but it quickly turned to something else. The ship was not finished. The power flowing through it demanded more than just victory. It wanted justice for every human colony that had been destroyed, every innocent life that had been lost. The AI spoke with a voice that sounded like Thunder Pilot. They are running, but they have not paid for their crimes. Should we let them escape to destroy other innocent worlds, or should we show the galaxy what happens to those who threaten humanity? Da'un looked at the retreating Devourer fleet and made a choice that would echo across the universe. We follow them, we make sure they can never hurt anyone ever again. The galaxy needs to learn that some things are worth fighting for, no matter how impossible the odds. The ship that had started as humanity's last desperate hope had become something far more powerful. It was now the instrument of their righteous anger, and it would not stop until justice was served. Dr. Shin Yena ran through the metal corridors deep under the moon. Her hands shook as she carried the blueprints that Captain Dae-ho had sent her. The secret laboratory was hidden so far down that most people forgot it existed, here in the dark. She would try to save humanity. The blueprints were covered in warning signs written in every language she knew. Project Prometheus had been banned by the Galactic Council before humans could even start building it. The alien leaders said it was too dangerous for any species to have, but Yena looked at the plans and saw hope. Her team of 20 scientists worked without sleep. They had less than 40 hours before the Devourer fleet reached Earth. The project needed something special about humans, something that other alien races did not understand. While other species had grown up on safe, comfortable worlds, humans had survived on a planet that tried to kill them every day. Earth had ice ages that froze everything, diseases that killed, millions wars that lasted decades, disasters that destroyed entire cities. But humans never gave up. They adapted, they survived, they became stronger. Other races called this stubbornness, but Yena knew it was humanity's greatest gift, the laboratory. Computers worked day and night analyzing human DNA. Every cell in a human body carried the memory of survival. The genetic code held secrets of how humans had climbed from caves to stars. It was this information that Project Prometheus would use. Meanwhile, in space, Commander Cho Min-ho prepared the human defense fleet. His 300 ships looked tiny compared to what was coming. The Devourers had weapons that could turn entire stars into black holes. Their shields could survive explosions that destroyed solar systems. What chance did human ships have against such power? Min-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship watching his fleet form battle lines. His captains were brave, but they all knew this would be their last fight, the best human. Weapons could barely scratch Devourer armor. Their fastest ships moved like snails compared to the enemy fleet, young pilot. Oh Da-un sat in her fighter reviewing the battle plans. Her squadron had 12 ships against thousands of planet killers. She was only 25 years old, but she had been chosen for something special, something the other pilots did not know about yet. Back in the moon laboratory, Dr. Yena made the final connections to her impossible machine. The device looked like a large metal egg covered in wires and glowing crystals. Inside was technology that the Galactic Council feared more than any weapon. It was not just a machine. It was a living computer that could think and feel. The AI spoke to Yena in her own voice, copied from hours of recordings. Hello, Doctor. I am ready to begin. The project will require a pilot who can bond with the ship, someone who understands what it means to never give up. Yena nodded and sent a message to space. Oh, Da-un. Please report to Luna Base immediately. You have been selected for a special mission." When Dawoon arrived at the moon base, she could not believe what she saw. The ship that emerged from the hidden construction bay was not very big. It looked almost ordinary compared to the massive alien vessels she had seen. But something about it felt different. The metal seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, Doctor. Yena explained the mission. "Dawoon, this ship is powered by something unique to our species. Our refusal to surrender even. When facing impossible odds, the more desperate the situation becomes, the stronger the ship will grow, but it requires a pilot who truly understands what it means to be human." Da-Yoon touched the ship's hull and felt it respond to her presence. The metal was warm under her hand like living skin. As she climbed into the cockpit, she heard the AI speaking in Dr. Yena's calm voice. "Welcome, pilot. I have been waiting for you." The ship's systems were unlike anything Dawoon had ever seen. Instead of buttons and switches, there were panels that responded to her thoughts and emotions. The AI explained that the ship would grow stronger by feeding on human determination. Every moment of despair would become fuel. Every act of courage would increase its power as Da-Yoon learned to fly. The impossible ship reports came in from the edge of human space. The Devourer fleet had arrived early. Thousands of ships, each one bigger than a human city, blocked out the stars. Their leader, Warlord HFY, sent another message to the human fleet. "Pathetic insects, you dare to face the might of the Devourers. We have crushed civilizations that were 1,000 times stronger than you. Your small fleet will be destroyed in minutes, and your worlds will burn before the..." Day End's Commander Minho replied with words that would be remembered forever. "We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not run away. If you want our worlds, you will have to take them from our dead hands." The Devourer fleet moved toward Earth like a dark cloud covering the sky. Their ships were so massive, they had their own gravity, wells pulling space debris into swirling storms around their hulls. Energy readings showed weapons powerful enough to crack continents in half. But as they approached the human fleet, something unexpected happened. The single ship piloted by Da-Yoon moved to the front of the formation. It was tiny compared to the Devourer vessels, but every human sensor locked onto it. The readings showed energy signatures that made no sense according to known physics. Warlord HFY looked at his sensors and laughed. "One small ship leads their pathetic defense. This will be over before it begins." But as his scientists analyzed the mysterious vessel, their reports made him frown. The ship seemed to be generating power from sources that did not exist. Dr. Yena watched from her laboratory as her creation prepared for battle. The ship was not just using advanced technology, it was tapping into something deeper, the collective will of every human who had ever faced impossible odds and refused to quit, the determination of cave dwellers who survived ice ages, the courage of explorers who crossed dangerous oceans, the stubbornness of inventors who failed 1,000 times. Before succeeding, Da-Yoon felt the ship responding to her emotions as the enemy fleet approached. Every fear she felt became fuel for the engines. Every memory of human struggle made the weapons stronger. The AI whispered encouragement in her ear. "Remember, pilot, we are the species that survived when our own planet tried to kill us. A few alien bullies should not scare us." The battle was about to begin, but neither side understood what was really happening. The Devourers saw one small ship facing their mighty fleet and assumed it would be destroyed in seconds. They did not know they were facing the concentrated essence of human survival instinct, made manifest in steel and energy. The humans saw their newest ship leading the charge and hoped it might buy them a few extra minutes to evacuate civilians. They did not know their pilot was about to unleash something that would rewrite the laws of physics through sheer force of will, as the two fleets closed distant space itself seemed to hold its breath. The galaxy was about to witness something that would be talked about for 1,000 years. The moment when humanity stopped being the galaxy's servants and became its protectors. The moment when one impossible ship would prove that. Size and strength meant nothing compared to the human refusal to accept defeat in her cockpit. Da-Un smiled as she felt the ship reaching full power. The Devourers wanted to destroy her species, but they had made one critical mistake. They had threatened innocent people, and that was something humans could never forgive. Captain Lee Dae-ho walked slowly across the metal floor of his ship. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines. His crew worked at their stations, checking screens and pressing buttons. The ship called Aegis was not very big compared to alien vessels, but it was the best Earth could build. Dae-ho looked out the window at the stars. He had been in space for 10 years now, but he still remembered his first day as captain. The other alien races had laughed at his small ship. They said humans were like babies learning to crawl, while everyone else could run. 30 years ago, Earth had joined something called the Galactic Council. It sounded important, but humans quickly learned they were the weakest members. The blue-skinned aliens, called Vortani, always made jokes about human technology. They would point at human ships and laugh like children seeing a funny toy. The bug-like aliens called Kalari were even worse. They had sharp claws and multiple eyes that moved in different directions. When humans tried to show their weapons, the Kalari would click their mandibles in what sounded like laughter. They thought human soldiers were playing with toy guns. The worst were the crystal beings called Nexari. They looked like walking diamonds and spoke in voices that sounded like singing. They were very smart, much smarter than humans, or so they claimed. The Nexari treated humans like pets that had learned a few tricks, but were still too stupid for important work. Dae-ho remembered Ambassador Park Soo-jin, coming back from council meetings. Her face always looked sad and tired. Every idea humans suggested was thrown away like trash. Every request for better technology was ignored. The galaxy saw Earth as useful only for digging up rocks and doing work nobody else wanted to do. Humans cleaned alien toilets, fixed their broken machines, carried heavy things from one place to another. They were the janitors of space, always cleaning up after races that thought they were better. The pay was terrible, and the treatment was worse, but Earth needed the money to survive. Young crew member Kim Tae-hyun walked up to the captain. His face looked worried. "Sir, we are getting strange readings on the long-range scanners. Something very big is moving toward human space." Dae-ho felt his stomach drop. "What kind of big?" "The readings show ships, sir. Many ships, some as large as moons. They will reach our outer colonies in 2 days." This was the news Dae-ho had been dreading for years. Pirates attacked human ships sometimes, but this sounded different. This sounded like an invasion force. He pressed a button on his chair. "Send the readings to Earth, command immediately." The message that came back from the unknown ships was simple and terrifying. It played on every human radio and screen in the galaxy. A voice spoke in perfect human language, though it sounded cold and empty. "We are the Devourers. We have consumed 17 star systems and taken the lives of billions. Your species has one day to surrender completely or face total destruction. Our leader, Warlord Keth-Ra, offers you this single chance. Choose submission or death." The message showed pictures of dead worlds, planets cracked in half like broken eggs, cities that once held. Millions of people turned into glass and ash, entire star systems dark and empty. The Devourers had weapons that could kill suns and break worlds like toys Earth Command, called every human ship back to defend their home worlds. Captain Dae-ho received orders to return immediately, but he knew it would not matter. The human fleet had about 300 ships. The Devourers had thousands, each one bigger and stronger than anything humans had ever built. What made everything worse was the response from the Galactic Council. The same aliens who had taken human money and labor for 30 years sent a message that made Dae-ho feel sick. "We regret to inform all human representatives that the Council cannot provide military assistance in this matter." Each species must handle their own defense. Good luck. Just like that. 30 years of friendship was thrown away. The Vortani who had laughed at human ships packed up their trade stations and left the Kalari who had mocked human weapons flew, away as fast as they could. The Crystal Nexari who thought they were so smart decided humans were not worth saving. Ambassador Park. Su Jin sent a desperate message to every council member begging for help. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Please, we have been loyal allies for 3 decades. Our children work in your factories. Our people clean your cities. Surely you can spare a few ships to help us survive. The answers came back quickly, and they were all the same. No help would come. No rescue. Fleet would arrive. No weapons would be shared. Humanity was alone facing enemies that could crack planets. While their so-called friends ran away to safety, Commander Kim Hae-won gathered every human ship that could fly barely 300 vessels, against thousands of planet killers. Most of the human ships were cargo haulers and mining vessels with small guns attached. They looked like children with water pistols facing a pack of wolves. Reports started coming in from the outer colonies. Ships the size of cities appeared in the sky above human worlds. The colonists had minutes to say goodbye to their families before the devourers attacked. Entire planets went silent, their radio signals cutting off in the middle of desperate calls for help. Colony 7 was the first to die. The message from the colony governor lasted only seconds. We can see their ships blocking out the sun. They are so big, so many of them. Tell Earth we tried to. The transmission ended with a sound like breaking. Glass Colony 12 lasted a bit longer. The defense coordinator managed to get a longer message out. The civilians are in the shelters, but I don't think it will matter. Their weapons are turning our mountains to dust. The cities are gone, the forests are on fire, tell my wife. More colonies fell every hour. New Sol went dark. Colony Hope stopped transmitting. The mining station at Kepler Prime sent one final message that was just screaming before the signal died. Each loss felt like a knife in Daeho's heart. These were not just military targets. These were homes where human families lived and loved and dreamed, as the reports of burning worlds flooded in. Daeho made a choice that would change everything. He walked to his private cabin and opened a sealed box that had been sitting there for 5 years. Inside were blueprints marked with warnings in dozens of languages. Project Prometheus was written at the top in red letters. The Galactic Council had banned this project before it could even begin. They said the technology was too dangerous for any species to possess. But now, with extinction staring humanity in the face, those restrictions seemed like a joke. What was the point of following rules made by aliens who had abandoned you to Daeho? Contacted Dr. Shin Yena, who worked in the secret labs under Earth's moon. The plans called for something humanity had never built before. Something that would require every bit of knowledge they had gained in 30 years, of being treated like servants. The galaxy thought humans were weak because they had not conquered other worlds. They did not understand that human strength came from something different, something that could not be measured by the size of their ships or the power of their weapons. As Daeho looked at the blueprints, he smiled for the first time in days. The other races had made a terrible mistake. They had seen human kindness as weakness and human patience as stupidity. They were about to learn that the quiet ones are often the most dangerous. The Devourer fleet was coming expecting easy prey. They had crushed 17 civilizations without breaking a sweat. One more weak species would not slow them down, but they had never faced humans who had been pushed too far. In the depths of space, something was about to be born that would make the galaxy tremble.